don't have to continuously do this.
Yeah, all right. So this is going to be episode 3, Evan. Remember that you filmed 2 of them. All right. So this one's going to be covering the red tape recorder, and we're going to go over the baguette zapper.
Yes. Which doesn't have a catchy name yet, unfortunately. We're working on it.
The Century Fryer.
But that would be like...
The Century Baker.
For one of the bakery things, it could be the shake and bake.
The easy... I don't know. We'll go with the Century Baker until we come up with a better name. And if we come up with a better name, we could just dub over like... Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 3rd episode of
Talk Fortress 2.
Talk Fortress 2. And today we're going to be going... we're going to start off with the tip, as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
And the tip for this time around has to do with playing engineer a little bit. When it comes to your sentry placement and everything, it's important to keep it within eyesight range, close enough so that you can get rid of a zapper or stop a spy, but not close enough that splash damage will affect you, and you can stay safely behind cover when your sentry is more out in the open.
And speaking of splash damage, do not place your buildings together.
Do not place your buildings together. If splash damage affects all of your buildings, and this has led to a lot of deaths when it comes to teleporters or like people teleporting through. Because I've been in games before where the teleporter's next to the sentry, and I'll teleport through, and a rocket, like a crit rocket, will hit the sentry, and I'll take a lot of damage for it. So another thing, like when it comes to spies, be very wary about your building, and there is one thing you don't have to be wary about, though, and that is the subject of this episode, and that is the red tape recorder. The red tape recorder, the first thing I'd like to go over is some buff ideas that I had for it.
Because it kind of sucks right now.
It does kind of suck right now. If you ask me, the speed of it should go a little bit faster. But a downside to this is it can still fire. Like one change that I had an idea for is, the reversing process still goes at the same speed as a regular zapper, but it does not disable the sentry. It takes away from its firepower slowly and surely, but it doesn't disable the sentry while that's happening. The sentry can still turn and shoot at stuff while it's being disassembled. And that would...
But there should have to be a couple of seconds when it's changing levels that it's disabled.
Yes. And that's just one idea that I had for the red tape recorder. Another idea maybe that they could change to make the red tape recorder a little bit more viable is giving it more health, like even more health than it already has, to the point where it doesn't take 2 hits to get rid of it. It takes more like 4. And it's kind of like, that would be very annoying, but that's the point of the red tape recorder. If the red tape recorder is going to be an annoying weapon that's hard to deal with, then it should be really annoying and really hard to deal with, because if it's just slightly annoying, then it's not enough to really, really take care of an NG or...
And if it's really annoying, it's great bait.
It's great bait.
If it's only slightly annoying, then it's not going to do much. But if they have to take 4 hits, you can stand nearby and then, boom, headshot. You're good to go.
Yeah, a few weapons that work really, really well in tandem with the red tape recorder is the, what is it called? The Cloak and Dagger and the Ambassador. What you do is you put your red tape recorder on a sentry or something, and you go and you hide off in a corner. And since the red tape recorder takes a really long time,
but the Cloak and Dagger, you don't lose charge if you're standing still.
Yep, with the Cloak and Dagger, you don't lose charge when you're standing still. So you can just wait until the NG comes, uncloak. Hopefully, he won't hear you when you uncloak. And then aim up and get a headshot on him at close range, or a backstab. And so it's really effective for, baiting engineers. But there's still problems with it that should be fixed, because it's the only alternative to the stock zapper, which was our previous episode. Go watch it if you haven't already seen it.
Yeah.
And it's the only alternative, and it's not as effective, so you don't see people using it very often.
Mm-hmm.
With the Pyro update especially, you don't see people using it at all because now there's just no way for spies to, there's just no ways for spies to stay around a sentry for very long until a Pyro or a Pybro, which we covered in our first episode, comes along and takes care of them. So, we're going to go over some tactics for new players to make the red tape recorder really effective. Do not, for new players, I would suggest using the revolver. Your aim hasn't, if you're new to the game, Team Fortress 2, you have to get used to the art style and how to aim and everything.
Unless you're one of those people who's amazing at aiming, no matter the game. But that's a very small percentage of gamers.
Yeah. So,
Or if you're using an aimbot. But that's cheating, kids, and you shouldn't do that.
You're going on a vacation if that happens. That's
Yep.
The VAC system is great, Valve. Keep it up. Anyway, so you might want to use the regular revolver and the regular cloak if you're going to use, if you're a new player using the red tape recorder. I just say that because, the stock everything for the spy is just good utility, and the only thing that should really change, if you're a new player, you should only change one thing at a time before you change multiple weapons, because each one of his weapons changes him a lot, changes him how he plays a lot. So if you're going to change his zapper to the red tape recorder, then do not change his other weapons, because that would be a lot more difficult to do.
And sometimes you think you want to change it all, but maybe if you just change one thing, you're like, hey, I actually like this better than my original plan.
So the one tactic you should be going for as a new player to have the most fun or the most effectability with the red tape recorder is putting it on a sentry, going back to your team. The NG's gonna go and inevitably remove the zapper, but it's at a lower level now. It probably wasted a lot of the engineer's time, and if it's at a choke point, it's great because not only does it take more time, but it also lowers down the sentry's level. So even if your team somehow fails getting through the checkpoint, it's going to be easier the next time around. That is, of course, if you got the pick on the NG. You should always kill the NG if you can.
Yep.
Because the NG, when you're using the red tape recorder, you should always kill the NG when you can have the ability to, because if you leave him alive, he'll repair the buildings a lot faster.
Or in really any situation when you're against an engineer and you're targeting his buildings, it's more valuable to kill the engineer or just any other player.
Seize the means of production.
See, that's the most valuable because also it hurts you the most when you die. So it's, like we mentioned in our previous episode, if you are an engineer, don't save your building if it's going to cost you your life. So on the flip side, if you're a spy and you see this engineer, go for the kill and then kill their buildings because it's going to hurt a lot more if you do that.
The sentry is very, very effective, so I would actually recommend destroying the sentry with the regular zapper, but since this is covering the red tape recorder, it's much more effective to put the red tape recorder on the building and then kill the engineer, because even if they remove the zapper, it's only going to be a level 1 or a level 2 by the time they're finished removing it. So, yeah, the red tape recorder is a utility weapon that you can use effectively, but it's a lot harder. So for newer players, I would only really recommend using the red tape recorder with stock so that you can get used to stock as well as get used to the gimmick that the red tape recorder really has. For advanced players, like we said earlier, putting it on a sentry in a choke point.
Yep.
Not putting the sentry in a chokehold. That doesn't.
I think the heavy would have to do that.
The heavy running at them with the killing gloves of boxing, just.
Or if you're disguised as a heavy, as a spy, your backstab is just chokehold.
Yeah. And so getting rid of sentries at a chokehold, being annoying to the engineer, and doing that tactic with the cloak and dagger and the ambassador, it's just really helpful to know that it's easier to get a pick on the NG with the red tape recorder. The stock zapper gets rid of the sentry, but the red tape recorder allows you to get to the sentry, get to the engineer, So you got to know which is most effective for your current situation. So an advanced player tactic that I would have is just, if you're having a hard time killing the NG, use the red tape recorder. If you're having a hard time killing the sentry, use the stock zapper. That's the only thing you need to know. And you shouldn't, stick to one or the other definitively.
Yep. Always mix it up a little bit, especially if you're getting predictable and you know the other team is predicting your movements. Switch your loadout, and then it's going to be harder to predict you because you're playing differently.
And when it comes to just having a tactic, that's a lot of fun. All of the tactics that work with the stock zapper work with the red tape recorder as well, but it's tenfold when it comes to funniness because it takes longer and the engineer is going to be a lot more panicky. And so, doing stuff like putting it on the teleporter and then going through to try and kill the NG, stuff like that's just a lot of fun to, it's just a lot of fun to mess with the NG. And then now we're going to go over our weapon idea.
Yep.
Now this one we actually kind of worked together on. It started off with a funny drawing. I think we can actually put it in the video. Here, it'll be on screen right now, right here. And
we were battling between crappily drawn NG and crappily drawn Spy.
I drew an NG who was bottom half was just a sentry. And the weapon idea was, this is not an actual weapon idea. The weapon idea was it replaces...
You can make it a thing though, if you want.
The idea was you pick yourself up, you are the sentry, and then you go somewhere and you set yourself down. And you just sit there and you punch people that get close to you. The upsides to the weapon is you're super strong.
Great melee damage.
But
if there's a sniper camping, you're donezo.
The NG is finally usable in Groot Keep, which is a game mode that is melee only.
Yeah, that would be great for melee only.
But on the more serious side, she drew a baguette with a handle as the zapper.
At first I just had it as a baguette weapon, but then he was like, oh, I can easily counter that. So I went, what if it's a baguette zapper?
Yeah, and so this actually became a genuine idea. And when it comes to what the weapon actually looks like, instead of just being a baguette with a handle, it's gonna be more it should look more like a stove with a baguette on the top.
Yep. And the dials that would normally be on a zapper are the stove dials.
Which is really funny cosmetic wise, and it's also just a visually interesting weapon. And the effects that come with the weapon was it does, I believe what we decided on, what it does is it works slower and has lower health than the regular stock zapper. It does the same amount of damage though. No wait. Dang. I should have probably brought my book where we had the statistics. Okay, yeah, I got it, I remember. It does the same amount of damage as a stock zapper, but it has lower health. And when it gets done destroying a building, it poofs into bread. It just cooks into bread and then falls onto the ground. And that happens with the dispenser, the teleporter, and the sentry.
If you're holding the zapper, it should make a ding. The oven is done.
Yep, it makes a ding when it's done destroying the sentry or dispenser.
Yep.
And so it does that, and it also drops a
health pack depending on the level of the sentry.
A health pack and an ammo pack. So that way the spy can immediately gain rewards from destroying the sentry. The health pack and the ammo pack both rely on the level of the sentry.
Yep.
If it's level 3, it drops a full health pack and a full ammo pack. This is also helpful for if there's a sentry that's close to close to everybody or it's at a choke point, you can switch their defense into your support, which is something that none of the other zappers do.
But to balance this, again, it has very low health.
It has low health. No matter which wrench the NG is using, he can go up and hit it once and it'll get removed.
Yep, because it gives you such great rewards.
Yeah, and so
So this really rewards you for killing the NG.
it really rewards you for killing the sentry and thus helps you kill the NG. It also helps your team out. You know, there's a bunch of upsides and downsides to using the weapons. Oh, and if the sentry, if the NG's dead, then it's free pickings. you
Yep.
know? Yeah, and so that's a Sentry Baker. Forgot to say the name of the weapon. We're working on the name.
Yeah.
Anyone can suggest it.
Comment below.
Comment below. What do you think the name should be? The Sentry Baker is going to be the current beta name.
Yeah.
We expect it to change because this Sentry Baker is not exactly.
Yeah. It's a placeholder.
It's a placeholder, yeah, and it's a good utility weapon. The spy doesn't have that many zappers, so it'd be great for newer players. Because it allows them to gain rewards from actually getting rid of the sentry and stuff. So
it'll encourage more people to use zappers because it's more evident what your rewards are and it's more immediate.
Yeah. And that's been the episode. We now have 2 episodes on the zapper, or both of the zappers for the spy. We have the stock, and we have the red tape recorder covered.
And then 2 new ideas for it.
2 new ideas for zappers, because the spy just doesn't have that many weapons, and we would like to go over as many as possible in order to.
We want to get a spy update.
We want to get a heavy update first. The heavy's really, he's really hurt.
Yeah, heavy update, and then 5 years later,
and then
a spy update.
20 years later, when nobody's playing the game, we get a spy.
Hey guys, we finally made a spy update. There's a 3rd zapper.
Hey, did you guys want some more cosmetics? Sorry, Valve, I'm not trying to make fun of you, but every update, it's just, hey, we got 2 new cases. We got 2 new cosmetic cases. It's great and everything, but I love me some new cosmetics, but new weapons.
Yeah.
Gameplay variation is very important in order to keep the game up to date, and one thing
Keep it from being stale.
Keep it from being stale, yeah.
Because if you played as much as Evan does, if you just have the same old weapon every single time, 1,000 hours later, you're gonna get bored.
Funny story about that, actually. Did you know, I'm still not bored with any weapon in the game because there's so many ways to use the weapons.
Which we explain in this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, Talk Fortress 2, we're teaching you how to keep the game fresh and exciting.
Yep. And we've basically gone over both of the ideas that we've had for zappers for the spy. We're going to go over some more ideas for the spy, but fully expect to see some weapon ideas for the heavy, medic, and spy.
Everyone's getting new weapons from us.
Everyone's getting new weapon ideas because...
And if you really like the idea, you can make it yourself. Just give us credit.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
If any of these weapons ever get a model, or if anyone decides to do any 3D modeling, we will leave a Steam link to that in.
Oh, we'll feature it in the video and everything. Give a shout out to whoever made it, because that's kudos to you if you make a full model for one of our ideas.
Yeah. And these it's nice talking about the red tape recorder and how fun it is. It's nice talking about how to make the game fun again and bringing new weapon ideas to the table. Team Fortress 2 is a great game. It's almost a sandbox when it comes to the creativity that some people can have with weapon usage. And I think it's really important to keep it fresh and keep it good.
The community is a huge part of TF2. It's the groundwork. So if you add more to the community, you add more to the game as a whole.
All right, well, thank you for tuning in for the 3rd episode of Talk Fortress 2. We'll see you next time where we'll cover some engineering.